Today we're going to make another sauce called a fond lie. Now a fond lie composes of two parts. The first part is, when we talk about ingredients, is having a really nice stock. So here's a nice brown veal stock that we have. And again, when you're making a fond lie and you're thickening it with a slurry, we'll talk about that in a second. Remember, your product is only going to be as good as the product that it starts out as. So I would taste your brown stock to make sure that you got a really nice flavor profile. And in this brown stock, I have a really nice, rich flavor profile, so I know that my fond lie is going to come out really nice. So 1 part of stock. Now, you can also use a chicken stock or a different type of stock to make a fond lie as well, but we're going to be using our brown veal stock. So what I want to do first, with that first part I talked about, is I just want to have a pan. I have a pan here, again, kind of low to medium heat. I want to bring my stock up to a boil, so I'm going to go ahead and put this in my pan and let this come up to a boil. So I'm going to watch my heat. I'm going to turn my heat up to a medium flame while we're getting ready, and we're going to start our second part of a fond lie, is making a slurry. And I want to talk a little bit about what a slurry is. A slurry is a thickening agent, and what we have here is, this is cornstarch. And cornstarch is this really fine, white, powdery product that is derivative from corn. They process corn in a certain way to make this really nice fine starch, and it's called cornstarch, and we're going to use this as one of our thickening agents. When you make a slurry, you can add wine or water, your choice. We're just going to use water just because I don't want to give any wine flavor to my my fond lie over here. I want to keep it that nice natural flavor of the beef veal stock. But I'm going to take some water, and I'm going to add some water into my cornstarch. And once you start to mix your cornstarch up, it's going to be a little sticky at first. The less water you add, or moisture, the more sticky it's going to be. The more liquid you add, the less sticky it's going to be. But you want to make sure that you want to make sure that you incorporate your slurry really well, and you mix it up to make sure all that cornstarch is dissolved. Now, while we're waiting for our veal stock to come to a boil so that we can thicken it and make a fond lie, one little point is, if I was to walk away after I mix my cornstarch and I let this sit here for 2 or 3 minutes, the cornstarch is going to settle on the bottom, and it's going to be really sticky and gooey on the bottom. So it's really important when you get ready to take your slurry and thicken your stock to make your fond lie, you want to make sure that you mix it up really well again before you actually start adding it to your stock, because you're going to lose a lot of that cornstarch on the bottom. So let's come back to our, so I'm going to turn my flame up just a little bit. So just to repeat, a slurry is a thickening agent, and we're using cornstarch and a liquid to make our slurry, and we're going to add this slurry into our veal stock that's come to a boil, and we're going to turn it down to a simmer. So I'm just at about a boil here. I'm going to turn my flame down, heat control, just so I have kind of a simmer, maybe a little bit higher than a simmer. And then I'm going to come back to my cornstarch here and my slurry, and I'm going to actually mix it up. So it's a little sticky on the bottom. It's starting to settle a little bit. So I just want to make sure that I incorporate that and I really mix up that slurry again one more time. Now that I have it completely mixed, you're going to go a little at a time. The thickness is going to be based on how thick you want your fond lie to be. So it's really important to start off slow. So we're going to come in here, and I'm going to add a little bit at a time, and I'm going to mix. Now I'm going to turn my heat up just a little bit because it's going to cool my mixture down. So now I'm going to turn my heat up just a little bit, and I want it to come back to that boil. As I continue to add my slurry, I want to give it about 10 to 15 seconds each time I add some, because if I'm not careful and I over add, it's going to thicken up on you really quick. So again, I turn that heat up, and I'm just slowly adding my slurry. I can always come back here, starting to thicken a little bit, make sure this is incorporated really well, and I can come in and add some more slurry to this. So I'm going to add a little more slurry, and again, we're on that medium to high heat, and you can see here it's really starting to thicken. We're looking for that like translucent type of thickening, and it's really popular. Really popular. Let me turn my heat down so it doesn't overboil. Really popular in making Asian sauces. They use a lot of slurries and cornstarch and arrowroot, which is another way of doing a slurry, to thicken up Asian sauces that are really clear and translucent. So we're getting there. I'm going to continue to add a little bit more slurry until I get to that nice nappe consistency. And it's going to really depend on how thick your instructor would like to see your fondue. So it really depends. Now, I can always check this by backing off. I'm going to set this down. I'm going to take a spoon, and I'm just going to see what kind of a viscosity I have by seeing how much it coats the back of the spoon. So I'm really, really light on how thick it is here. So I'm just going to come back again, mixing up my slurry, and then I'm going to incorporate some more slurry into this so I can thicken it up a little bit more. So let's let that settle for a second. I'm going to turn my heat up just a little bit. And you're going to want to cook it out for about 45 seconds to a minute. Really, really important to see. We're kind of getting there. It's still not quite thick enough. I like my fondue to be a little bit thicker than that. And I'll add a little bit more of my slurry. And then we can see how it's really starting to thicken that up. So let's back off on this. Let's check it again with our spoon. We want to see, now we're starting to get a little bit of a thicker consistency on our sauce, and I still want to take it a little bit thicker than that. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to mix. I'm going to turn my flame down just a little bit, and I'm going to add just a tiny bit more of my slurry to get it to that nice consistency. I want to have a little bit more of a nappe on the back of the spoon, so I'm going to thicken it up just a little bit more here. I'm going to turn my heat back up and give it another 35 to 45 seconds here. I want to bring it back to a boil. Constantly stirring, making sure that I incorporate that slurry really well so we don't get these gel clumps. We don't want to see any gel clumps. Once I have it incorporated, let's back off a little. I'm going to take my spoon again and I'm going to check. Now I'm really starting to get a really nice light nappe. I like my fondues to be a nice nappe. You can see the consistency on the spoon, so I'm going to back off. We can actually thicken it a little bit more, and let's just do that just so you guys can see that you can go a little bit thicker with it. I'm just going to add almost the majority of the slurry here, so I actually kind of made that to the correct amount. And then we're going to let this sit for about 35 to 45 seconds. Turn the heat up. I want to cook it out just a little bit. Now I'm getting that really, really nice consistency. Let's take our spoon and check it one more time. I'm going to turn my heat down. And you look at that, how beautiful, that nice, beautiful nappe on the back of that spoon. And at this stage, we're going to want to taste. So I'm going to be very careful and taste this. And again, we taste because we're checking for seasoning. It definitely needs some salt, so I'm going to add some salt to bring that out. I'm going to add a little bit of white pepper as well. Now, what's really fun about this type of sauce is that you can leave it just the way it is, or you can get really creative and add other ingredients to it. Some fresh chopped herbs would make a really nice fondue sauce as well. So again, just a matter of where you want it to be. So let's taste it one more time. I want to make sure all those flavors meld. I'm going to keep it pretty plain. I just want you to see how beautiful, nice nappe on the spoon, the sauce is. Salt really brought all those flavors together, so that's really, really nice. So we're real close to plating up here. So what I'm going to do is just take a bowl here, and I want to talk again about the slurry real quick. Really, really important, again, when you're making a fondue, you need to make a slurry. And that slurry is with cornstarch and some either wine or some water. And let's go ahead and pan this sauce up. We have a nice, beautiful fondue made out of a beef stock or veal stock with a nice nappe consistency.